Introduction: The HR Illusion and the Reality of Your Workplace. Did you know that 70% of what you tell human resources isn't kept confidential? In fact, in most corporate structures, that information is actually used to build a legal defense against you. Let that sink in for a second. 70%. Think about the last time you walked into an HR office or joined a Zoom call with your representative. You probably saw a friendly face. You probably saw a poster on the wall about open door policies or mental health awareness. You might even have felt a sense of relief, thinking, finally, someone who is paid to listen to my problems. But here is the brutal truth that most employees learn too late. HR is not your friend. They are not your therapist, and they are certainly not your union. HR exists for one specific purpose: to protect the company from liability. And very often, the liability they are protecting the company from is you. Welcome to HR Secrets Revealed: How to Spot Manipulation and Escape a Toxic Workplace. If you are listening to this, chances are you already suspect something is wrong. Maybe you have this gnawing feeling in the pit of your stomach every Sunday night, the Sunday scaries, that has grown from a mild annoyance into a full-blown panic attack. Maybe you've noticed that your manager's instructions seem to change every week, making it impossible for you to succeed. Or maybe you've tried to speak up about an issue, only to find yourself suddenly excluded from meetings you used to lead. You are not crazy. You are not imagining it. And most importantly, you are not alone. We're living through an epidemic of toxic workplaces. For years, we've been sold a lie. We've been told that if we work hard, keep our heads down, and be team players, we will be rewarded. We've been told that the company is a family. But what happens when that family turns dysfunctional? What happens when the systems designed to support you are weaponized to silence you? That is exactly what we are going to dismantle in this audiobook. Over the next few hours, we are going to pull back the curtain on the corporate machinery that keeps you compliant, underpaid, and fearful. We aren't just going to complain about bad bosses. We're going to analyze the specific psychological tactics they use to manipulate you. We're going to talk about gaslighting, a term that gets thrown around a lot, but has a very specific, dangerous application in the office. You'll learn how to spot when a manager is rewriting history to make you question your own competence. We're going to decode the Performance Improvement Plan, or the PIP. If you've ever been handed one of these, you know the terror it induces. But I'm going to tell you what HR won't. A PIP is rarely about improvement. It's a paper trail for termination. And I'll teach you exactly how to handle it so you don't walk away empty-handed. We're going to look at the money. We'll expose the salary secrecy scam and why companies are terrified of you discussing your wages with your coworkers. We'll look at the carrot on the stick, those vague promises of future promotions that keep you working 60-hour weeks for 40-hour pay. But this book isn't just a list of problems. It is an escape manual. Because knowing the traps is only half the battle. You need a strategy to get out. You need to know how to document everything without getting caught. You need to know how to network for a new job while you're still working for a paranoid boss. You need to know how to write a resignation letter that protects you legally and how to survive the exit interview without burning a bridge or blacklisting yourself. This is about reclaiming your power. When you are in the middle of a toxic environment, your reality gets warped. You start to think, maybe I am the problem. Maybe I'm just not working hard enough. Maybe I'm just too sensitive. That is the toxicity talking. That is the result of a system designed to break your confidence so you don't ask for more. I want you to take a deep breath. Release the tension in your shoulders. By the end of this book, you will have a clear, actionable roadmap. You will be able to look at your manager, your HR rep, and your company culture with clear eyes. You will no longer be a pawn in their game. You will be the player who knows the rules better than they do. We're moving from being a victim of the workplace to being the CEO of your own career. So if you've ever felt like you're being watched rather than supported, or if you're tired of trading your mental health for a paycheck, keep listening. We're about to deconstruct the playbook they use against you, page by page. It's time to stop trusting the system and start trusting yourself. It's time to learn the secrets they never wanted you to know. Are you ready to find out why "we are family" is the most dangerous phrase in business? Let's get to work.
Chapter 1. The "we are family" lie. We're not just a company, we're a family. It's a phrase that appears in almost every job description, every onboarding slide deck, and every CEO's town hall speech. On the surface, it sounds warm and inviting. It sounds like a place where you belong, where people care about you, and where you're safe. But here is the hard reality you need to accept immediately. Your job is not your family. Your coworkers are not your siblings, and your boss is certainly not your parent. When a company uses the family label, it is often the first and most dangerous red flag of a toxic workplace. Why? Because family implies a relationship based on unconditional love and obligation. Business, on the other hand, is a relationship based on a contract and compensation. When you blur those lines, you create an environment ripe for manipulation. Think about it. You don't negotiate a salary with your mother. You don't ask your brother for overtime pay when you help him move a couch on a Saturday. In a family, you do things because you should, not because you're being paid for it. By labeling the workplace a family, companies are subtly trying to remove the transactional nature of your employment. They are trying to replace pay for performance with loyalty for belonging. And once you buy into that illusion, it becomes incredibly difficult to set boundaries without feeling like you are betraying the people you care about. The psychology of false loyalty. Let's dig into why this tactic is so effective. Humans have a deep biological need to belong to a tribe. When an employer taps into that need, they are hacking your psychology. They want you to attach your identity to the company brand in the same way you attach your identity to your last name. When you feel like the company is your family, asking for a raise feels selfish. Leaving for a better opportunity feels like abandonment. This is exactly what they want. They want to create a culture where leaving the company is framed as a moral failing rather than a smart career move. Have you ever heard a manager say, "I'm disappointed," rather than, "This wasn't the result we agreed upon"? That is emotional leverage. In a professional setting, feedback should be objective and metric-based. In a family setting, feedback is personal. It attacks your character. This manufactured loyalty is designed to silence you. If you see something unethical, or if you're being mistreated, the family code of silence kicks in. You don't rat on your family. You keep secrets. And that is how toxic behavior festers for years without anyone speaking up. Now let's look at how this plays out in your day-to-day life, specifically regarding your time. This is where the family dynamic creates the most burnout. We've all been there. It's 5:30 p.m. You've finished your work for the day. You pack your bag. But as you walk toward the door, you see the rest of the team still glued to their screens. Your manager looks up and says, "Oh, leaving early? We're all pulling together to get this done for the family." Suddenly, you freeze. You aren't leaving early, you're leaving on time. But the social pressure makes you feel like a traitor. You put your bag down, you stay. You work for free. This is the guilt trip mechanic. In a healthy business relationship, overtime is requested and compensated. In a family dynamic, overtime is expected as a sign of devotion. They use phrases like, "whatever it takes," "all hands on deck," or "wearing many hats." Wearing many hats is usually corporate code for, "we fired 3 people and need you to do their jobs for the same salary." If you try to push back, you get hit with the ultimate manipulation. "I guess you just aren't a culture fit." They weaponize your desire to be a good person against your desire to have a life outside of work. They make you feel that by setting a boundary, you are letting everyone else down. Distinguishing support from exploitation. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I actually like my coworkers. We support each other. That's great. Having friends at work is vital for your mental health. But we need to distinguish between a supportive professional team and a toxic family culture. Here is the litmus test. A supportive team respects your boundaries. A toxic family erases them. In a healthy environment, if you have a personal emergency, your manager says, "Go take care of that. We'll cover you. Let us know when you're back." That is professional support. In a toxic family environment, they might say the same thing, but then they text you during the emergency asking where a file is. They might give you the time off, but then make passive-aggressive comments about how hard everyone else had to work while you were gone. Real support empowers you to be your best self. Toxic family pressure demands you sacrifice yourself for the greater good of the entity. Ask yourself this question. If the company hit a bad financial quarter, would the family protect you, or would they lay you off via a Zoom call and cut your access to email before you could say goodbye? We saw this happen recently in the tech industry. Companies that spent years preaching, "We are family," fired thousands of loyal family members overnight. The illusion shattered instantly. The business reality was always there. It was just hidden behind free snacks and team-building retreats. So, how do you handle this? You don't have to be cynical or rude. You can be kind, professional, and engaged. But you must mentally detach from the family narrative. Start correcting the language in your head. This is not your home. It is an office. These are not your siblings. They are colleagues. This is not a betrayal. It is a business transaction. Once you strip away the emotional manipulation, you can see the workplace for what it really is. And once you see it clearly, you'll start to notice the other structures they've built to keep you in line. Because once they've hooked you emotionally, they need to lock you down legally. And that brings us to the paperwork. You might think those documents you signed on day one were just standard procedure. But hidden inside them are clauses designed to silence you forever. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about weaponized confidentiality and the truth about those NDAs. You might be surprised to learn just how much of your voice you've already signed away.
Chapter 2. Weaponized Confidentiality. Think back to your first day at your current job. The excitement, the nerves, the free coffee mug. And then, the paperwork. The stack of documents was probably an inch thick. Tax forms, direct deposit info, insurance enrollment. And buried in the middle of that stack were pages of legal agreements, non-disclosure agreements, proprietary information agreements, and the employee handbook acknowledgement. You probably didn't read them. Don't feel bad. Almost no one does. You just wanted to get to your desk and start working. You signed your name, handed them back, and forgot about them. But HR didn't forget. They filed those documents away, knowing that they had just handed you a gag order. This is what I call weaponized confidentiality. In a healthy business, confidentiality is about protecting trade secrets. It's about making sure the recipe for Coca-Cola or the algorithm for Google doesn't get leaked to a competitor. That makes sense. But in a toxic workplace, confidentiality shifts from protecting intellectual property to protecting bad behavior. You need to understand the difference between a trade secret and a dirty secret. A trade secret is a piece of data that gives the company a competitive edge. A dirty secret is a manager who throws staplers, a pay gap based on gender, or a culture of burnout. Toxic companies love to blur this line. They use broad, sweeping language in their NDAs that makes you feel like you can't talk about anything that happens inside the building. They want you to believe that discussing your working conditions, your salary, or the way you were treated is a violation of company policy. The truth is, in many jurisdictions, broad confidentiality agreements that stop you from reporting illegal activity or discussing wages are unenforceable. But companies rely on fear. They know you probably won't hire a lawyer to check the fine print. They bank on the fact that you'll stay silent because you're afraid of getting sued. They weaponize this silence. When you leave a toxic job, they might offer you a severance package. It looks generous, but look at the strings attached. Almost always, that money comes with a strict non-disparagement clause. They are literally buying your silence. They are paying you to never tell future employees about the toxicity you survived. This is how these environments persist for decades, because the victims are paid to disappear quietly. The confidential meeting trap. Now let's move from the legal documents to the daily operations. This is where weaponized confidentiality gets personal. Have you ever had a manager or HR rep pull you into a room and say, "I want to have a candid conversation, just between us, off the record"? Your guard goes down. You think, finally, I can be honest. You vent about the unrealistic deadlines. You mention that your supervisor makes you uncomfortable. You admit you're struggling with the workload. You think you're having a safe, confidential chat. You aren't. In the corporate world, there is no such thing as off the record with management. While you are venting, they are mentally and sometimes literally taking notes. But they aren't documenting your struggles to help you. They're documenting your negativity, your inability to cope, or your lack of resilience. That confidential meeting is often the first step in building a case to fire you. They use your own honesty as evidence that you aren't a good fit. Here is a rule to live by. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And if it is in writing from them, assume it's a legal defense. Never assume a closed door protects you. If you have a serious complaint, you must document it yourself. If you have a verbal meeting, send an email immediately afterwards saying, "Hi, just to recap our conversation today, we discussed X, Y, and Z." If they try to stop you from creating a paper trail, you know exactly what game they are playing. Reading between the lines of the handbook. Now we have to talk about the employee handbook. That boring PDF on the company intranet, it's a minefield. Toxic companies design their handbooks with vague catch-all phrases that allow them to fire you for almost anything. Look for terms like conduct unbecoming, attitude detrimental to the team, or generic insubordination clauses. These are what I call trapdoor policies. If you're a high performer, but you start asking too many questions about why the team is understaffed, they can't fire you for performance, so they open the handbook. Suddenly, your questions are labeled as attitude detrimental to the team. They also use social media policies to extend their confidentiality control into your private life. Have you checked your social media policy lately? Many of them are written so broadly that posting a frustrated tweet about work at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night could be grounds for termination. They claim it damages the company's reputation. They are extending their control beyond the office walls, silencing you even in your own home. So what do? First, find that handbook and actually read it. Search for the vague terms. Know the rules better than they do. Second, stop treating confidentiality as a sacred vow to the company. Respect true trade secrets, absolutely. But do not confuse protecting a product with protecting a toxic culture. You have a right to speak about your working conditions. You have a right to report abuse. And you have a right to document everything. Now that you understand how they use policies and paper to control you, we need to go deeper. Policies are things you can see, but the most effective manipulation happens in your mind. It makes you question your own memory, your own sanity, and your own worth. In the next chapter, we're going to tackle the psychological warfare of the workplace. We're talking about gaslighting, how they twist reality until you believe you are the problem.
Chapter 3, Corporate Gaslighting 101. Have you ever walked out of a meeting feeling completely confused? You went in certain of your facts. You had the data, you remembered the conversation from last week clearly, and you knew exactly what the plan was. But 10 minutes later, you're sitting at your desk thinking, wait, did I imagine that? Did I misunderstand everything? Maybe I really am the one who dropped the ball. If this happens to you regularly, you aren't losing your mind. You are being gaslighted. Gaslighting is a term that comes from the world of psychology and abusive relationships, but it has found a comfortable home in the modern office. It is a form of psychological manipulation where a person makes you question your own perception of reality, your memory, and your sanity. In a relationship, it looks like a partner saying, "I never said that, you're crazy." In the office, it sounds professional. It sounds like, "I think you might be confused about the scope of this project." Or, "We discussed this last month, I'm surprised you don't remember." The goal is the same, to destabilize you. When you don't trust your own memory, you become easier to control. You stop fighting back because you're too busy second-guessing yourself. Rewriting history. The most common form of corporate gaslighting is the rewriting of history. This usually happens when a manager makes a mistake or changes their mind, but refuses to take responsibility for it. Let's say your boss tells you to prioritize Project A and put Project B on hold. You do exactly that. You spend all week crushing Project A. Then on Friday, they ask, "Why isn't Project B done? That was the priority." You calmly remind them, "On Monday, you told me to focus on A." And here comes the gaslight. They look at you with a mix of pity and frustration and say, "I never said to stop working on B. You must have misunderstood. I said prioritize A, but obviously B still needed to get done. You need to work on your listening skills." Suddenly, the failure isn't their poor communication, it's your listening skills. They have rewritten history to make themselves the victim of your incompetence. If this happens once, it's a misunderstanding. If it happens repeatedly, it is a tactic. They rely on the fact that you probably didn't record the conversation. They rely on your desire to be a good employee who takes feedback. Over time, you start to apologize for mistakes you didn't make. You start writing down every single word they say, terrified of misunderstanding again. You are living in a state of constant anxiety, which ironically actually does make your performance suffer. The second technique is what we call shifting the goalposts. This is designed to keep you running on a hamster wheel where you can never quite reach the cheese. You ask what you need to do to get a raise or a promotion. They give you a list of 3 specific targets. You work your tail off for 6 months. You hit all 3 targets. You schedule a meeting, proud of your work, ready to claim your reward. But instead of a "congratulations," you get a "yes, but." Yes, you hit those sales numbers, but we really need to see you step up more as a leader before we can discuss a title change. Or, yes, you finished the project, but you didn't show enough initiative in the process. The target you hit is no longer the target that matters. They have moved the goalposts further down the field. The manipulation here is subtle. They aren't saying no, they're saying not yet. They keep the hope alive just enough to keep you working hard, but they never intend to let you actually succeed. It makes you feel like you are perpetually inadequate, always just one step behind where you should be. Trusting your memory over their narrative. So how do you survive this? How do you keep your grip on reality when the people in charge are trying to loosen it? You must externalize your memory. You can no longer rely on verbal agreements or understandings. You need data. If you have a verbal meeting where tasks are assigned, you go back to your desk and send an email immediately. Hi, boss. Just confirming the takeaways from our chat. I will focus on Project A effective immediately, and Project B will be paused until further notice. Please let me know if I've misunderstood anything. This is your sanity log. When they try to gaslight you on Friday, you don't have to argue. You don't have to say, "But I thought." You simply forward that email and say, "I'm operating off this plan we agreed to on Monday. If priorities shifted midweek, I wasn't informed." It is incredibly hard to gaslight someone who has receipts. But more importantly, you must trust your gut. If you feel confused, drained, and anxious every time you interact with your manager, that is your body telling you the environment is unsafe. You aren't crazy. The environment is sick. Gaslighting is an attack on your confidence. But the next tactic we're going to discuss is an attack on your employment status. Gaslighting is often just the warm-up act. Once they have eroded your confidence, they move to the formal process of pushing you out. It's a tool that sounds helpful. It has the words performance and improvement right in the title. But it is usually the kiss of death for your job. In the next chapter, we're going to deconstruct the Performance Improvement Plan, or the PIP, and I'll tell you why signing one might be the beginning of the end.
Chapter 4. The Performance Improvement Plan, PIP, Trap. There is a specific moment in a corporate career that feels like the ground dropping out from under you. You walk into a meeting room expecting a weekly check-in. But when you open the door, your manager isn't alone. Sitting next to them is an HR representative. On the table is a single sheet of paper. They smile tight, uncomfortable smiles. Then they slide the paper toward you. "We want to support you," they say. "We want to help you get back on track. So, we're putting you on a performance improvement plan." They call it a PIP. It sounds helpful, doesn't it? It sounds like a roadmap to success. It sounds like they are investing resources to help you improve. I need you to listen to me very carefully. A PIP is rarely a tool for improvement. In the vast majority of cases, a performance improvement plan is a formal notification that the decision to fire you has already been made. The company just needs to withstand the legal paperwork first. Decoding the soft warning. To understand the PIP, you have to understand how companies think about firing people. In most places, employment is at will, meaning they can fire you for any reason. However, companies are terrified of lawsuits. They are terrified of wrongful termination claims or discrimination suits, and they really hate paying unemployment insurance. To protect themselves, they need to prove that you were the problem. They need to prove that they gave you every chance to succeed and you simply couldn't cut it. That is what the PIP is. It is not a training manual. It is a legal defense document. It is the final layer of the paper trail they've been building against you, likely starting with those confidential meetings we talked about in Chapter 2. So how do you know if you're in real trouble? There is a difference between a manager saying, "Hey, you need to tighten up your reports," and a formal PIP. A genuine coaching moment happens between you and your boss. It's informal, specific, and focused on the work. A PIP involves HR. It involves signatures. It has a specific timeline, usually 30, 60, or 90 days. If HR is in the room, the goal isn't development. The goal is documentation. They are starting the clock on your exit. When they hand you that document, they are essentially saying, "We are going to fire you in 30 days unless a miracle happens." And they usually make sure the miracle is impossible. This brings us to the content of the plan itself. If you read a PIP carefully, you will often find that the goals are designed to ensure you fail. They do this in two ways. First, they use vague subjective language. They might say you need to improve executive presence, or demonstrate more leadership initiative, or communicate with a more positive tone. How do you measure positive tone? You can't. It is entirely up to the manager's interpretation. This allows them to say you failed the PIP no matter what you do. You could be the happiest person in the office for 30 days, and at the end they can simply say, "We just didn't see the shift in attitude we were looking for." The second method is the impossible math trap. If you work in sales or a metrics-driven role, they might give you a hard number to hit, but look closely at that number. Is it higher than what your top performers are doing? Is it achievable with the current market conditions? Often, they will assign you a workload that would drown 2 people and then penalize you for missing deadlines. It's a catch-22. If you rush to hit the deadlines, they fire you for quality errors. If you take time to ensure quality, they fire you for missing deadlines. The psychological toll this takes is devastating. You end up working nights and weekends trying to save your job, pouring your heart into a company that has already decided to get rid of you. You burn yourself out chasing a finish line that they keep moving. So, you're staring at the PIP. They have a pen waiting for you. They want you to sign it. Your instinct is to refuse. Or maybe your instinct is to argue, to scream that this is unfair. Don't do either. Refusing to sign can be seen as insubordination, which gives them grounds to fire you immediately. But signing it without comment looks like an admission of guilt. It looks like you agree that your performance was bad. Here is the play. You signed the document, but next to your signature you write "Receipt acknowledged only." Written rebuttal to follow. Then you go home and you write that rebuttal. This is critical for your unemployment benefits later. If they fire you for misconduct or poor performance, they can try to deny your unemployment claim. Your rebuttal is your evidence that you were not negligent, you were targeted. In your rebuttal, go through every point in the PIP. If they say you missed a deadline, provide the email showing you sent it. If they say your numbers are down, provide the context that the whole team's numbers are down. Keep it factual, keep the emotion out of it. Send this rebuttal to HR and your personal email address. You are now creating your paper trail. But here's the hard advice. While you're fighting the PIP, you must also be looking for the exit. Do not try to beat the PIP. Even if you survive the 30 days, even if you hit every metric and they keep you, the trust is gone. You are now a marked employee. You will likely be passed over for promotions and raises. You will be looking over your shoulder every day. Use the PIP period as paid time to find a new job. Do the bare minimum to keep them off your back and pour your energy into your resume, your network, and your escape plan. The PIP is a trap, but it's also a signal. It's the loudest signal they will ever give you. They are telling you, go. Listen to them. Now we've covered how they attack your performance. But there's another area where the deception is just as deep, but much quieter. It's the one thing we're all taught never to talk about. In the next chapter, we're going to break the taboo surrounding your paycheck. We're going to expose the salary secrecy scam and show you how keeping your mouth shut about money is costing you thousands of dollars a year.
Chapter 5. The Salary Secrecy Scam. There is one question that can silence a crowded break room faster than anything else. How much are you getting paid? It's the ultimate taboo. We are taught from a young age that discussing money is rude, tacky, or unprofessional. We feel a knot of anxiety just thinking about asking a coworker what their salary is. We worry that if we find out they make more than us, we'll be jealous, or if they make less, things will get awkward. But ask yourself, who actually benefits from this silence? Does it benefit you? Does it benefit your coworker? No. The only entity that benefits from salary secrecy is the company. If you don't know what your peers are making, you have no leverage. You are negotiating in the dark. This is what I call the salary secrecy scam.
It is a deliberate cultural engineering tactic designed to keep labor costs down by preventing collective bargaining. As long as you think you are getting a fair deal, you won't ask for more. But the moment you find out that the new hire, who you are currently training, is making $10,000 more than you, the illusion collapses. The legality of wage discussions. Let's start with the most important fact that HR hopes you never learn. In many places, including under federal law in the United States, it is illegal for an employer to ban you from discussing your wages. Under the National Labor Relations Act, employees have the right to engage in concerted activity for mutual aid or protection. That includes talking about how much you get paid. Have you ever seen a clause in a contract that says salary details are confidential? Or has a manager ever told you, we prefer you keep your compensation package to yourself to avoid teen conflict? That manager is likely breaking the law. They are suppressing your federally protected rights. They frame it as avoiding conflict. They say, we don't want feelings to get hurt. What they really mean is, we don't want you to realize we are underpaying you. When they prohibit these conversations, they create an information asymmetry. They have all the data. They know exactly what everyone makes. You have zero data. In any negotiation, the person with the most information wins. By sharing your salary with your coworkers, you are leveling the playing field. You're turning me against the company into us against the underpayment. I'm not saying you need to shout your salary from the rooftops, but finding a trusted peer and saying, hey, I want to make sure we're both being treated fairly. I'm making X amount. How does that compare to you? Is a power move. It's the only way to know your true market value. Total comp slough versus real pay. Now let's talk about how they manipulate the numbers when you do ask for a raise. You walk in, ask for a salary adjustment, and they slide a piece of paper across the desk titled Total Compensation Statement. They point to a big, impressive number at the bottom. Look, they say, we're actually paying you $100,000 a year. But you know your bank account only sees $60,000, so where is the other $40,000? They're counting the company's contribution to your health insurance. They're counting the matching funds to your 401k that you can't touch for 30 years. They're counting the cost of the free snacks in the kitchen, the gym membership you don't use, and the potential bonus that is entirely discretionary and hasn't been paid out in full since 2015. This is the total comp trap. They try to distract you with benefits and perks to justify a below-market-based salary. Here is the reality check. You cannot pay your rent with a gym membership. You cannot buy groceries with culture. You cannot pay off your student loans with potential bonuses. When you negotiate base salary. That is the only number that guarantees your standard of living. Don't let them fluff the numbers with operating costs they would have to pay anyway. When they start talking about the value of the office ping pong table, bring the conversation right back to the cash. The cherry-picked market rate. Finally, we have to address the market rate excuse. You ask for a raise and HR comes back with a spreadsheet. We'd love to pay you more, they say with a sigh, but we've done a market analysis and your current salary is actually right in line with the market rate for this position. It sounds scientific. It sounds objective. Who can argue with the market? But you need to ask which market and which data. HR departments subscribe to massive salary databases. These databases allow them to filter data in 1,000 different ways. They can filter by region, by industry size, by years of experience, or by job title. If they want to justify paying you less, they can simply filter the data to include lower-paying industries or smaller cities. They can compare your role as a senior analyst to a junior analyst role at another company just because the job descriptions are vaguely similar. Furthermore, most companies aim for the 50th percentile. That means they intentionally aim to pay exactly the average, mediocre pay for mediocre performance. But they expect you to be a top performer. If you are a top 10% employee, why should you accept 50th percentile pay? Don't accept their data as gospel. Do your own research. Use sites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and industry-specific salary guides. Bring your own data to the meeting. When they show you their cherry-picked low numbers, you show them the reality of what your skills are actually worth on the open market. Money is a sensitive topic. It's tied to our self-worth and our survival. That is exactly why they want you to stay silent about it. They want you to feel awkward so you don't feel angry. But once you break that silence, you start to see the cracks in the system. You realize that the fairness they preach is a myth. Money is a major red flag, but sometimes the environment itself is the danger. Sometimes the trap isn't in your paycheck. It's in the processes they claim are there to help you. In the next chapter, we're going to discuss one of the most deceptive tools in the HR toolkit, the open door policy. You've been told you can talk to anyone, anytime. I'm going to tell you why walking through that door might be the biggest mistake of your career.
Chapter 6. The Open Door Policy Trap. We've all seen the sign. It might be literal, hanging on your boss's office door, or it might be a metaphor repeated during every orientation session. My door is always open. It's meant to project approachability. It suggests transparency. It implies that if you have a problem, whether it's with a project, a coworker, or even the management style, you can walk right in and handle it like adults. It is one of the most comforting lies in the corporate world. In a toxic workplace, the open door policy is not a channel for resolution. It is a surveillance tool. It is a funnel designed to identify troublemakers, assess risks, and neutralize complaints before they become legal issues. When you walk through that open door, you believe you are entering a safe space to vent or seek help. In reality, you're walking into a trap. You are voluntarily handing over information about your dissatisfaction, your potential to leave, or your knowledge of company malpractice. And once you hand that information over, you lose control of it completely. Who actually hears your complaints? Let's trace the path of a complaint. You walk into your director's office or schedule a chat with your HR business partner. You close the door. You say, "I'm having a really hard time with my manager, Steve. He's aggressive, he changes deadlines without notice, and he's killing team morale." You feel better. You got it off your chest. You assume the person across the desk is going to investigate Steve. But here's what actually happens. As soon as you leave, that person has to make a decision. Do they protect you, a replaceable employee, or do they protect Steve, a manager who drives revenue and has been with the company for 10 years? In most cases, the first thing they do is call Steve. They might frame it gently. They might say, "Hey Steve, we've had some feedback about morale." But Steve knows exactly who gave that feedback. The team is small. He knows who he's been aggressive with. Now, instead of a solution, you have a target on your back. You have signaled to the upper management that you are unhappy. In their eyes, an unhappy employee is a risk. You are a flight risk, a lawsuit risk, or a morale risk. The person who listened to you wasn't a neutral arbiter. They were a company agent gathering intel. And now that they know you are dissatisfied, they aren't looking for ways to fix the problem. They're looking for ways to manage you out of the problem. This leads us directly into the retaliation loop. Retaliation is illegal, yes, but proving it is incredibly difficult. Toxic managers are smart enough not to fire you the day after you complain. That would be too obvious. Instead, they play the long game. Suddenly, you're left off email threads that you used to be on. You aren't invited to the lunch meeting. Your projects become slightly less interesting, or conversely, impossibly difficult. Your flexible work-from-home arrangement is suddenly revoked because the team needs more face time. This is soft retaliation. It's designed to make you miserable enough to quit so they don't have to fire you. And if you go back through the open door to report the retaliation, you'll likely hear, "I think you're being a bit paranoid. We just made some structural changes. It's not about you." This is the cycle. You report a problem, the environment gets colder, You report the coldness, and you get gaslighted. The open door was the entry point to this nightmare. If you had kept your mouth shut and just done your job, you might still be miserable, but you wouldn't be targeted. So, are safe alternatives for reporting? This means you should never report anything? Not necessarily. But you have to be strategic. You have to understand that venting is dangerous. If you are going to report something, it needs to be an objective, undeniable violation of company policy or law, something like sexual harassment, theft, or safety violations. And it needs to be documented in writing before you walk through the door. But for general toxicity, bad management, mean coworkers, chaotic processes, the open door is rarely the answer. Instead, look for safe alternatives. Does your company have an anonymous ethics hotline run by a third party? That is safer, though still not 100% guaranteed. Better yet, find an external mentor. Find someone in your industry who doesn't work for your company. Vent to them. Get their perspective. They can tell you if what you're experiencing is normal industry stress or toxic abuse, and they have no incentive to report you to HR. Ultimately, if you find yourself needing to use the open door policy constantly, that is the sign itself. A healthy culture doesn't need a formal policy to say we listen to you. They just listen. If there is a neon sign pointing to the open door, it's usually because they are trying to compensate for a culture of closed minds. Don't walk into the trap. Keep your counsel, document your reality, and save your honest feedback for your friends outside the building. Now, we've talked a lot about the mental and strategic games being played here, but there is a cost to all of this that isn't just professional, it's biological. You can ignore the red flags in the staff meeting. You can ignore the gaslighting in the email chains, but you cannot ignore what your own body is trying to tell you. In the next chapter, we're going to step away from the office politics and look in the mirror. We're going to discuss the physical signs that your job is actually making you sick, from the Sunday scaries to unexplainable pain, and why your body usually knows it's time to quit long before your brain admits it.
Chapter 7. Physical Signs Your Job is Toxic. I want you to think about Sunday afternoon. The sun is shining, you're supposed to be relaxing, maybe you're watching a movie or having dinner with family. But around 4 p.m., a creeping shadow starts to move into your mind. Your chest gets tight. Your stomach feels sour. You start obsessively checking your phone, anticipating the chaos of Monday morning. By the time you try to sleep, your heart is racing, and you're staring at the ceiling, mentally rehearsing arguments with your boss. This is often dismissed as the Sunday scaries. We joke about it on social media. We treat it like a normal side effect of having a job. But I am here to tell you that it is not normal. It is a biological warning siren. Your body is an incredibly sophisticated machine designed to detect threats. In the wild, if a predator was nearby, your body would flood with adrenaline and cortisol to help you fight or flee. In the modern office, there are no tigers. There is just an inbox, a Slack notification sound, and a passive-aggressive manager. But your body doesn't know the difference. When your job is toxic, your body stays in fight or flight mode permanently. And that chronic state of emergency is destroying your health. The Sunday scaries and sleep disruption. Let's look at the first major symptom: sleep. When you are in a safe environment, sleep is how your body repairs itself. But in a toxic environment, sleep becomes a battleground. You might fall asleep easily from sheer exhaustion, but then you wake up at 3 a.m., wide awake, your brain looping on a conversation from 3 days ago. This happens because your cortisol levels, the stress hormone, are failing to regulate. Instead of dipping at night to allow for rest, they stay elevated because your brain perceives the office as a danger zone. If you find yourself needing a glass of wine to wind down every single night, or if you need prescription sleep aids just to get 6 hours of rest before a workday, that is not a lifestyle choice. That is self-medication for a toxic environment. The cortisol crash, unexplained pain.
Beyond sleep, we have to talk about pain. Have you ever noticed that you get a migraine the second your vacation starts? Or that you get sick with the cold every time you finally have a long weekend? This is called the letdown effect. When you're running on high stress, your body pumps out immune-boosting chemicals to keep you going. It's survival mode. But the moment you stop, the moment you relax on a Saturday or a holiday, those chemicals drop, and your immune system crashes. You get sick because you finally stopped running. Furthermore, chronic stress manifests physically in ways we often ignore. It shows up as chronic back pain that no chiropractor can fix. It shows up as digestive issues. IBS is rampant among people in high-stress, toxic jobs because the gut is the first place anxiety attacks. It shows up as hair loss, skin breakouts, or sudden weight fluctuations. We often try to treat these symptoms individually. We take painkillers for the head, antacids for the stomach, and melatonin for the sleep. We treat the symptoms, but we ignore the disease. The disease is the job. If your doctor can't find a physical cause for your ailments, the cause is likely sitting in your office chair. Your body is screaming, "Get me out of here." And because you're not listening, it's screaming louder. The final thing we need to address is the workplace PTSD phenomenon. Trauma isn't just for soldiers or accident victims. Emotional abuse, gaslighting, and constant fear of termination can rewire your brain. Do you flinch when your phone pings? Does the sound of a specific ringtone make your pulse spike? That is a trauma response. Your brain has associated that sound with a threat. Do you find yourself over-explaining everything to your friends or partner, terrified that you'll be misunderstood? That's a defense mechanism you picked up to survive a gaslighting boss. Even after you leave the job, these symptoms can linger. I've coached people who have been out of a toxic job for 6 months, yet they still panic when their new, kind boss asks for a quick chat. They're waiting for the other shoe to drop. They are waiting for the abuse to start again. This is the hidden cost of staying too long. You're not just losing your time, you're damaging your nervous system. The longer you stay in that environment, the longer it will take to heal once you get out. So, listen to your body. It rarely lies. If you feel sick when you pull into the parking lot, that is data. If you feel relief only when you are sick and can't go to work, that is a massive red flag. You do not get paid enough to sacrifice your long-term health. No salary is worth a heart attack at 45. No title is worth chronic insomnia. Recognizing the physical toll is the first step in realizing that this isn't sustainable. You have to get out to get better. But the company knows that if you were strong and confident, you would leave. That's why they have one more layer of tactics designed to keep you weak, confused, and isolated. They need to make sure that you don't form alliances with your coworkers. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about divide and conquer. We'll look at how toxic managers pit employees against each other, create favoritism, and ensure that you never feel safe enough to trust the person in the cubicle next to you. Chapter 8. Divide and Conquer Tactics. Imagine a workplace where everyone got along perfectly. Imagine if you and your coworkers trusted each other completely, shared salary information freely, and stood united against unreasonable deadlines. If you were a toxic manager, that scenario would be your worst nightmare. Why? Because a united team is powerful. A united team can push back. A united team can demand better conditions. To prevent this, toxic organizations use one of the oldest military strategies in the book, divide and conquer. They intentionally manufacture conflict between employees to keep you weak, distracted, and isolated. If you are too busy fighting with Susan from accounting, you won't have the energy to fight the system that is exploiting both of you. Favoritism as a tool for control.
The most blunt instrument in this toolkit is favoritism. But I'm not talking about a manager simply clicking better with one person. I'm talking about strategic, weaponized favoritism. You've seen it happen. There is one employee, let's call him the golden child. The golden child can show up late without consequence, they get the best leads, the easiest projects, and public praise for doing the bare minimum. Meanwhile, you are scrutinized for taking a long lunch break after working a 12-hour shift. This disparity drives you crazy. You start to resent the golden child. You complain about them to your peers. You obsess about why they are getting special treatment while you are doing all the work. That resentment is exactly what the manager wants. By creating a golden child, the manager sends a subtle message to everyone else. This is what I want. If you want safety, you must please me just like he does. It turns the team into a group of rivals, competing for the manager's affection rather than a team of professionals collaborating on work. It creates a culture of kissing up rather than leveling up. And crucially, it directs your anger towards your coworker instead of towards the manager who is rigging the game. You blame the golden child for being lazy instead of blaming the manager for allowing it. In-groups and out-groups. On a broader scale, this tactic evolves into the creation of in-groups and out-groups. The in-group gets invited to the closed-door strategy meetings. They get the inside scoop on company changes before anyone else. They go to the happy hours with the boss. The out-group is left in the dark. They find out about restructuring via a mass email. They are given the grunt work. This dynamic exploits our biological fear of exclusion. Being left out triggers the same part of the brain as physical pain. So people will do almost anything to get into the in-group. They will gossip, they will backstab, and they will sell out their integrity just to feel included. This destroys any chance of solidarity. If you try to organize your team to ask for a raise, the people in the in-group won't join you because they don't want to lose their status. The people desperate to join the in-group will likely report you to management to prove their loyalty. The workforce becomes fractured. You stop seeing your colleagues as allies in the struggle for fair pay and start seeing them as obstacles to your own survival. Spotting the office informant. This brings us to the most dangerous element of a divided workplace, the informant. In every toxic environment, there is at least one person who feeds information back to management. Sometimes this person is obvious, the notorious teacher's pet, but often it is someone you wouldn't suspect. It might be the friendly coworker who always stops by your desk to ask you, "So, how are you really feeling about the new policy?" They listen to your venting, they nod sympathetically, and then an hour later, your manager calls you in and quotes your exact words back to you. The existence of an informant creates a panopticon effect, the feeling that you are being watched at all times, even when the boss isn't there. It kills trust. You stop talking to your peers. You stop sharing your struggles. You withdraw into a shell of silence. When everyone is silent, the toxicity thrives. You might think you are the only one suffering because no one else dares to speak up. You feel isolated and alone, which makes you much easier to manipulate. So, how do you handle this? First, refuse to play the rivalry game. If a coworker is the golden child, don't hate them. Recognize they're being used as a prop. Second, be extremely careful who you trust. Assume that anything you say in the break room could end up on the manager's desk. Build your support network outside the company, not inside. And third, watch out for the people who try to pull information out of you. A true friend at work shares their struggles first. A spy asks about yours. Isolation is scary. It makes you feel vulnerable. But the company knows that even if they can isolate you, Eventually, you might still leave if the money isn't right. So they have to promise you that things will get better. They have to promise you a future that is bright, shiny, and lucrative. But just like the family lie, this promise is usually a mirage. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about the future promotion carrot. We'll discuss why that raise is always 6 months away and why the most hardworking employees are often the ones who get stuck in the same role forever. Chapter 9. The Future Promotion Carrot. There is a fable we all know about a donkey and a carrot. The driver dangles a carrot on a stick just out of the donkey's reach. The donkey keeps walking, thinking that with just one more step, he'll get the treat. But the stick is attached to the cart. No matter how fast the donkey walks, the carrot stays exactly the same distance away. In the corporate world, this isn't a fable. It is a retention strategy. We call it the future promotion carrot. It usually starts during your annual review. You've had a stellar year. You've exceeded your targets, you've taken on extra work, and you walk into that meeting ready to ask for the title change and the salary bump you deserve. Your boss leans back, smiles, and says, "You are doing amazing work. We see you as a future leader here. We can't do the promotion right now because of insert vague excuse about budgets or timing. But stick with us. Big things are coming for you next quarter." You leave the meeting feeling validated. They see me as a leader, you think. So you go back to your desk and work even harder. You wait for next quarter. But when next quarter comes, there's another excuse. We're in a hiring freeze. We're restructuring. We need to see you lead one more project just to be sure. 6 months turn into a year. A year turns into 2. You are doing the work of a director, but you are still being paid as a manager. You are chasing a carrot that is glued to the stick. The just one more project cycle. The mechanism that keeps you trapped here is what I call the just one more project cycle. This is psychological manipulation at its finest. They know that high performers are driven by achievement. We want to prove we are capable, so they weaponize that drive. They say, "We want to promote you, but the VP needs to see you handle a crisis first. Handle this mess, and then we'll have the leverage to get your raise approved." So you handle the crisis. You save the day. You burn yourself out doing it. You go back to them and say, "I did it. Can I have the promotion now?" And they say, "That was great, but now we really need you to launch this new initiative. Once that is stable, we'll do the paperwork." Do you see the pattern? The condition for the reward is always future labor. They are extracting free labor from you today in exchange for a promise that costs them nothing. By the time you realize the game is rigged, you've given them thousands of dollars worth of unpaid work. You've been acting in a role for free, proving you can do it. Why would they pay you more for something you are already doing for less? Mentorship versus the string along. Now, I want to be fair. Sometimes you truly aren't ready for a promotion. Sometimes a manager genuinely wants to develop you. So how do you tell the difference between a mentorship track and a toxic string along? The difference is specificity. A real mentor creates a plan. They say, to get to the next level, you need to master X skill. Here's the training budget to learn it. Let's review your progress in 3 months. If you hit these metrics, the promotion happens on this date. That is a contract. That is clarity. A string along is vague. It relies on words like soon, down the road, in the pipeline, or when the dust settles. If you ask for a timeline and they get defensive, you are being strung along. If they say, "Why are you so focused on titles? You should be focused on the work," you're being strung along. They are trying to shame you for wanting fair compensation for your increased value. Also, watch out for the title-only promotion. This is when they finally give you the senior title you wanted, but then say, HR rules say we can only do salary adjustments at the end of the fiscal year. Do not fall for this. A title without a raise is just more responsibility for the same price. It is a vanity metric, not a career advancement. So, how do you break the stick? You have to force a decision. The next time your boss dangles the future potential, you need to stop them and ask for a success contract. You say this: I appreciate that you see my potential. I want to get to that next level. Can we write down exactly what metrics I need to hit and the specific date the promotion will take effect once I hit them? Watch their reaction. If they start backpedaling, if they say they can't commit to dates, or it depends on the market, then that you have your answer. The answer is no. The carrot is fake. At that moment, you have a choice to make. You can stay and accept that this is your ceiling, or you can take your talents to a market that will pay for them. Here's the hard truth. The fastest way to get a promotion is often to quit. Data consistently shows that employees who jump companies every 2 to 3 years earn significantly more than those who stay loyal to one company. The loyalty premium doesn't exist anymore. In fact, there's a loyalty tax. By staying, you're accepting 3% raises, while the person they hire to replace you will likely get paid 20% more than you are making right now. If they won't give you a date, stop giving them your extra effort. Stop chasing the carrot. If you've nodded your head to any of these chapters, if you've recognized the gaslighting, the false family dynamic, or the fake promises, it is time to pivot. You know the environment is bad. You know they are not going to fix it. So you need to protect yourself. You need to stop overgiving. You need to conserve your energy for the only thing that matters right now, your escape. In the next chapter, we are going to discuss the art of quiet quitting. It's a controversial term, but I'm going to teach you how to do it professionally. We'll talk about how to emotionally detach, how to do exactly what you're paid for and nothing more, and how to buy yourself the time you need to find a better life.
Chapter 10. The Quiet Quit Strategy. Quiet quitting. You've probably heard the term. The media loves to spin it as a generation of lazy workers refusing to do their jobs. They paint it as an epidemic of entitlement. But let's strip away the corporate propaganda and look at what it really is. Quiet quitting is not about being lazy. It is not about sabotage. It is simply about fulfilling the exact terms of your contract. No more, no less. In a healthy workplace, going above and beyond is natural because you are rewarded for it. But in a toxic workplace, going above and beyond is just self-harm. You are pouring your energy into a black hole that will take everything you give and still ask for more. So, for the purpose of your escape plan, we are going to reframe this. We aren't quitting anything yet. We are engaging in strategic detachment. You are about to start a second job, the job of finding your new career. To do that, you need time and mental energy. You cannot manufacture more time in the day, so you have to reclaim it from your current employer. Setting hard boundaries. The first step is cutting the digital leash. Toxic jobs rely on the assumption that you are available 24/7. They rely on you checking Slack at dinner, answering emails from bed, and responding to texts on Saturday morning. You need to stop this immediately. But you don't do it by making a big announcement. You don't send an email saying, "I will no longer be checking messages after 5 p.m." That paints a target on your back. That looks like rebellion. Instead, you just stop. At 5 p.m., you close your laptop. You turn off notifications on your phone. If a text comes in, you ignore it. When you come in the next morning and your boss asks, "Did you see my text last night?" you respond cheerfully and professionally, "No, I was offline for the evening, but I'm looking at it right now. What do we need to do?" You are training them.
You are resetting their expectations. At first, they might be annoyed, but if you are consistent, they will eventually stop expecting an immediate response. You are reclaiming your evenings. You are reclaiming your nervous system. Acting your wage. Next, we need to talk about acting your wage. This is a calibration exercise. Look at your salary. Look at your job description. Are you doing the job you are paid for, or are you doing the job of 3 people? If you are being paid a mid-level salary, you should deliver mid-level results. You should be competent. You should be reliable. But you should not be stressing yourself out trying to perform at an executive level for a junior-level paycheck. This means you stop volunteering. When the manager asks, "Who wants to lead the holiday party committee?" you stay silent. When there's a crisis that isn't in your department, you let it be someone else's problem. You stop trying to fix the broken systems. You stay in late to cover for the team member who was fired and never replaced. You do your assigned tasks, you do them well enough to avoid a performance improvement plan, and then you go home. This can be incredibly hard for high achievers. We take pride in our work. It feels wrong to give anything less than 100%. But remember, you are in a survival situation. Your 100% is now split. 50% goes to the job to keep the paycheck coming, and 50% goes to your escape plan. Preserving energy for the hunt. This brings us to the why. Why are we doing this? We are doing this because looking for a job is exhausting. Updating your resume, writing cover letters, networking on LinkedIn, and interviewing, it takes a massive amount of cognitive load. If you spend 8 hours a day fighting fires, managing your boss's emotions, and stressing over office politics, you will have zero energy left at 6 p.m. to apply for new roles. You will just collapse on the couch, scroll through social media, and tell yourself, "I'll start looking tomorrow." And tomorrow never comes. That is how people get stuck in toxic jobs for years. They are too tired to leave. By quiet quitting, you are hoarding your energy. You are treating your current job as a funding source for your future. You go in, you act like a professional, you nod your head in meetings, you say the right buzzwords. But emotionally, you have checked out. When your boss criticizes you, it doesn't hurt anymore because you don't care. When the project fails because of bad management, you don't panic because it's not your company. You are an observer. You are a spy behind enemy lines. This emotional distance is your armor. It protects your confidence so you can walk into an interview feeling fresh and capable rather than broken and desperate. You have stopped overgiving. You have stopped playing their game. You are simply exchanging labor for money while you build your raft. But as you pull back, you need to be careful. As you disengage, they might start watching you more closely. They might start looking for reasons to push you out before you are ready to jump. You need an insurance policy. You need proof. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about the documentation defense. I'm going to teach you how to build a personal file of evidence that will protect you from slander, help you fight a termination, and ensure that if you leave on your terms.
Chapter 11. The Documentation Defense. I need you to be a little paranoid for a moment. Imagine this scenario. It's Friday afternoon. You are called into HR. They tell you that you are being let go for consistent performance issues and insubordination. You are shocked. You've never had a bad review. You've never refused a task. You try to argue. You say, "But my manager said I was doing great last week." They look at you blankly and say, "We have no record of that. But we do have a record of you missing a deadline on Tuesday." In that moment, your word means nothing. The company's file on you is the only truth that matters to them. Unless you have your own file.
This is the documentation defense. In a toxic workplace, you cannot rely on the company to keep an accurate record of your employment. They document to protect themselves. You must document to protect yourself. If you wait until you're fired to start gathering evidence, it is too late. You lose access to your email, your Slack history, and your shared drives the second they cut your badge. You need to be building your defense file right now, in real time. The incident log is your best witness. This is not a diary. It is not a place to write, "My boss was mean today and it made me sad." That is emotional, and emotions don't hold up in a dispute. An incident log is a factual, chronological record of events. You can keep this in a physical notebook that you take home every day or in a secure app on your personal phone. You never keep it on a work device. Here is the formula for a perfect entry. 1. Date and time, October 12th, 2:30 p.m. 2. Location or method, Zoom call or break room. 3. Witnesses, Jane Doe and John Smith were present. 4. The fact, Manager Steve raised his voice and called my report garbage. He threw the report on the table. He stated that I would not be receiving the bonus promised in the June 1st email. That's it. No adjectives about how you felt, just the raw data of what happened. Why is this so powerful? Because memories fade. If you end up in a legal battle or an unemployment hearing 6 months from now, the company will have vague generalizations. You will have specific dates, times, and quotes. In the eyes of the law and HR, the person with the specific notes is usually presumed to be telling the truth. Now, let's talk about digital evidence, emails and Slack messages. This is tricky. A common piece of advice is to BCC your personal email address on important threads. I want you to be very careful with this. Modern IT departments have sophisticated monitoring software. If you suddenly start forwarding dozens of internal documents to coolguy88@gmail.com, you might trigger a security alert. They can fire you before you even have a chance to use it. So, how do you save digital proof safely? 1. Print to PDF. If you receive a critical email, like a positive performance review, a change in your job duties, or a harassing message, print it to PDF and save it to a personal USB drive, if your computer allows external drives. 2. Screenshots. Take screenshots of Slack conversations where you're being targeted or praised. 3. The transcription method. If you can't export files safely, open the email on your screen and type the contents verbatim into your personal incident log, noting email from name at time regarding subject. 4. Pictures. In extreme cases, use your personal phone to take a photo of your computer screen. It's low-tech, but it's undetectable by IT monitoring software. Remember, you aren't stealing trade secrets. Do not download client lists or code. You are documenting interactions regarding your employment. Keep the distinction clear. Saving the praise. We focus a lot on documenting the bad stuff, but you must also document the good stuff. Toxic managers love to rewrite history to say you are always a low performer. You need a kudos file to prove them wrong. Did a client email you to say thanks for a great job? Save it. Did a coworker mention in a Slack channel that you saved the project? Screenshot it. Did your boss reply, "Great work," to a report you sent 3 months ago? Find it and keep it. This kudos file serves 2 purposes. First, it disproves the narrative that you are incompetent. If they try to fight your unemployment claim by saying you were fired for poor performance, you can pull out a stack of emails from last month praising your work. It destroys their case. Second, you need this for your resume. When you are beaten down by a toxic job, you forget what you're good at. Reading through your kudos file reminds you of your value. It gives you the bullet points you need for your next interview. Documentation is peace of mind. When you know you have the receipts, you don't have to panic when they threaten you. You can sit there calmly, knowing that if they try to lie about you, you have the truth stored safely on a hard drive at home. You have your evidence, you have your defense. You are emotionally detached. Now it is time to go on the offense. You can't stay here forever. You need to find a new home. But job hunting while working full-time is dangerous. If they find out you're looking, they will push you out before you land a new offer. In the next chapter, we're going to learn the art of networking without getting caught. I'll teach you how to scour LinkedIn, take interviews, and handle references without ever alerting the surveillance state of your current office.
Chapter 12. Networking without getting caught. Job hunting while you are currently employed is a lot like being a secret agent. You are living a double life. By day, you are the loyal, hardworking employee, but in the margins, during your lunch break, in the car, and late at night, you are plotting your escape. The stakes are high. If a paranoid manager finds out you are looking, they might fire you on the spot to protect the company. You could lose your paycheck before you have a new one lined up. So, you have to move in the shadows. But how do you network, which is inherently social and public, while staying hidden? The LinkedIn stealth mode. It starts with LinkedIn. This is the primary battlefield for modern job hunting, but it's also the first place your boss looks to see if you're unhappy. If you suddenly update your profile picture, rewrite your bio, and post 5 times a day after being silent for 3 years, you are sending up a flare. Everyone knows what that means. First, go to your privacy settings. Find the toggle that says Share Profile Updates with your network. Turn it off. This ensures that when you polish your resume or change a headline, your boss doesn't get a notification saying, "Jane is updating her profile." Next, use the Open to Work feature, but be careful. LinkedIn allows you to add a green frame to your photo that says Open to Work. Do not use this. That green frame is visible to everyone, including your coworkers. Instead, select the option that says Recruiters Only. This signals the algorithm and headhunters that you are on the market, but to the naked eye of your colleagues, your profile looks normal. When you start connecting with people, don't just blast out requests. Be surgical. If you are reaching out to a hiring manager at a competitor, do not do it from your work computer. Do not use the company Wi-Fi. And if you need to post content to look active, start doing it gradually. Share industry news. Comment on other people's posts. Make it look like you are just being a thought leader for the benefit of your current company, rather than building a brand for your next one. The doctor's appointment alibi. Now let's talk about the logistics of the interview. Getting an interview is great, but attending it without raising suspicion is an art form. In the era of Zoom, it's a little easier, but you still have to be careful. If you usually wear a t-shirt to work and suddenly show up in a blazer and a crisp button-down, people will talk. We call this the interview suit dead giveaway. If you have a video interview, dress the part from the waist up, but keep a hoodie or a sweater handy to throw on immediately afterward. Or, better yet, schedule interviews for early morning or late afternoon so you can take the call from home. When you need to leave the office, you need a solid alibi. The doctor's appointment is the classic, but you can't use it 3 times a week. You need variety. I have a dentist appointment. I need to let the plumber in. I have a parent-teacher conference. If you are working in an office, do not take the interview in a conference room. Do not take it in the stairwell. Go to your car. Drive to a coffee shop down the street. And here is a pro tip. Block out focus time on your calendar. If you have an interview at 2 p.m., block your calendar from 1:30 to 3 p.m. Call it Project Research. This prevents your boss from scheduling a last-minute emergency meeting right when you're supposed to be pitching yourself to a new employer. The reference check minefield. The biggest fear for most secret job hunters is the reference check. You get to the final round and the new company says, "Great, we just need to speak to your current supervisor." Your heart stops. You can't let them talk to your current boss. If they call your boss and you don't get the job, you are dead in the water. Here is how you handle this. It is standard industry practice to protect candidates in this position. You simply say to the recruiter, "I am very interested in moving forward. However, my current employer does not know I am looking, and for the sake of my job security, I cannot authorize you to contact them at this stage. I would be happy to provide references from former managers or trusted colleagues who have left the company." Any reputable recruiter will respect this. If they push back and insist on speaking to your current boss before a written offer is signed, that is a massive red flag for the new company. It shows they don't respect candidate privacy. If you absolutely must provide a reference from your current job, find a peer. Find a coworker you trust explicitly, perhaps someone who is also unhappy, and ask them to vouch for you. But be careful. Mutual destruction ensures silence. I won't tell if you won't tell. You are almost there. You are networking quietly. You are taking interviews in your car, and then it happens. You get the offer. You sign the paper. You have a start date. Now comes the moment you have been dreading and dreaming of. You have to tell them you are leaving. This is the most dangerous part of the process. Emotions are high. You want to scream. You want to tell them exactly why you are leaving. You want to burn the place to the ground. Do not do it. In the next chapter, we are going to write your resignation letter. I will teach you why less is more, why you should never include your reasons for leaving in writing, and how to hand in your notice without handing them a match to burn your reputation.
Chapter 13. The Resignation Letter. This is it, the moment of truth. You have the new offer signed, sealed, and delivered. You have your start date. You are safe. Now you're sitting in front of a blank Word document, cursor blinking, ready to write your resignation letter. I know exactly what you want to do. You want to write a manifesto. You want to list every grievance, every slight, every unpaid overtime hour, and every instance of gaslighting you've endured for the last 3 years. You want to set the record straight. You want to tell them exactly how they failed you. Stop. Take your hands off the keyboard. A resignation letter is not a diary entry. It is not a place for catharsis, and it is certainly not a place for feedback. A resignation letter is a legal notification. That is all. Its only purpose is to officially terminate the contract between you and your employer. Anything you add beyond the necessary facts is not just unnecessary, it is dangerous. It becomes a permanent part of your personnel file. It can be used against you in legal disputes. It can be shared with future employers during background checks in some industries, and it will absolutely ensure that you burn the bridge to the ground. So, what should you write? I'm going to give you the template right now. It is boring, it is dry, and it is perfect. Dear manager's name, please accept this letter as formal notification that I am resigning from my position as your job title. My last day will be date, usually 2 weeks from now. Thank you for the opportunity to work at company name. I wish you and the team all the best. Sincerely, your name. That's it. 3 sentences. Notice what isn't there. There is no I am leaving because. There is no I found a better opportunity. There is no apology, and there is definitely no emotional outpouring. You don't need to explain why you were leaving. You don't need to justify your decision. You are a free agent in a free market. You are selling your labor, and you have decided to sell it elsewhere. You don't owe the grocery store an explanation when you decide to shop at a different market, and you don't owe your employer one either.
If you're leaving a truly toxic environment, you might struggle with the thank you part. You might think, I'm not thankful for this nightmare. Think of it as professional armor. You are thanking them for the paycheck or for the lesson in what not to do. It's polite filler. It keeps you looking like the classier party. Let's talk about why we leave the reasons out. If you write, I am resigning because of the hostile work environment created by my manager, you have just triggered a formal HR investigation. You might think, good, let them investigate. But remember, you're leaving in 2 weeks. Do you really want to spend your final 10 days sitting in interrogation rooms with HR lawyers, having them dissect your claims while your manager glares at you from across the hall? Furthermore, if you put specific grievances in the writing, you limit your future legal options. If you later decide to sue for constructive dismissal or discrimination, the company's lawyers will pull out your resignation letter. If you didn't mention the discrimination in the letter, they will say, see, they didn't leave because of discrimination, they just resigned. It says right here, thank you for the opportunity. Conversely, if you do put it in the letter, they will attack your credibility immediately to protect themselves. The resignation letter is a permanent record. It is not the place to fight the battle. The battle is over. You won. You were leaving. Don't hand them a weapon on your way out. Finally, we need to address the 2 weeks standard. In the United States and in many other places, giving 2 weeks notice is a professional courtesy, not a legal requirement, unless you have a specific contract stating otherwise. Check your paperwork. Toxic managers often react poorly to resignations. They might take it personally. They might start yelling. They might try to guilt trip you into staying longer. How can you do this to us right before the deadline? We need you to stay for a month to transition. The answer is no. I can give you 2 weeks to document my processes and hand over my keys. My start date at my new role is firm. Be prepared for the opposite reaction too. In highly paranoid companies, the moment you hand in that letter, they might tell you to pack your things and leave immediately. This is called immediate termination upon notice. If you suspect your boss is the type to do this, make sure you have already cleared your personal files off your computer before you hand in the letter. Make sure you have your contacts and your kudos file saved, because once you hand over that piece of paper, you might lose access to your email within 5 minutes. If they walk you out immediately, don't make a scene. Walk out with your head high. Enjoy the 2-week vacation before your new job starts. The resignation letter is the lock on the door you are closing. Click it shut, turn the key, and don't look back. But there is one final trap they will try to set for you. It's the last attempt they will make to extract information from you, and it's often disguised as a helpful feedback session. In the next chapter, we're going to discuss the exit interview. I'm going to tell you why you should never, ever tell the truth in an exit interview, and how to navigate those awkward final questions without damaging your reputation.
Chapter 14. The Exit Interview Trap. You've handed in your resignation. You've packed your box. You've said your awkward goodbyes. You are literally hours away from freedom. And then an email pops up from HR. Subject: Exit Interview. It says something like, "We value your feedback. We want to know why you're leaving so we can improve the company culture for everyone else. Please join us for a 30-minute chat to discuss your experience." This is the final test, and sadly, it is the one where most people fail. You read that email and you think, finally, this is my chance. I'm leaving anyway, so I have nothing to lose. I am going to tell them everything. I'm going to tell them about the bullying. I'm going to tell them about the unpaid overtime. I'm going to make sure they know exactly how toxic Steve is so they can fire him and save my friends.
You feel a sense of righteous duty. You want to be the martyr who fixes the system on your way out. Do not do it. I repeat, do not tell the truth in your exit interview. The myth of improvement. Let's look at the mechanics of why the exit interview exists. You believe it exists to gather data for improvement. HR tells you it exists for improvement. But in a toxic company, the exit interview exists for risk assessment. When you sit down and unload all your grievances, the HR representative isn't thinking, "Oh wow, we really need to get Steve some leadership coaching." They are thinking, "Oh wow, this former employee is angry. They are making accusations of a hostile work environment. They are a potential lawsuit. We need to flag their file." By being honest, you're not fixing the culture. You're simply labeling yourself as disgruntled. Think about it. If the culture is toxic, HR already knows. They know Steve is a problem. They've seen the turnover numbers. They've heard the whispers. They haven't fixed it yet because they don't want to, or because Steve brings in too much money for them to care. Your exit interview is not going to be the aha moment that changes their minds. It's just going to be a red mark on your permanent record. The boomerang effect. But, you might say, I'm leaving. Who cares what my permanent record says? I'm never coming back. The world is smaller than you think. Industries are small. There's a concept called boomeranging, returning to a company you previously worked for. You might swear today that you'll never return, but in 5 years, that company might be acquired by a better one. The leadership might change. They might offer you a VP role with double your salary. If you left quietly and professionally, you are eligible for rehire. But if you scorched the earth in your exit interview, if you called the CEO incompetent and the manager a tyrant, you are likely marked as ineligible for rehire. You have burned a bridge that you didn't need to burn. Furthermore, HR people talk. Recruiters talk. If you develop a reputation as someone who trashes their employers, that reputation travels faster than your resume. The strategy is aggressive neutrality. So how do you handle the interview? Option A, decline it. Yes, you can do that. An exit interview is voluntary. You can simply reply to the email and say, "I'm very busy wrapping up my projects to ensure a smooth transition, so I won't have time for a formal exit interview. My resignation letter covers everything. Thanks." If they insist, or if you feel you must go to maintain appearances, choose option B, aggressive neutrality. This is an acting performance. You are Switzerland. When they ask, "Why are you leaving?" you say, "I was presented with an incredible opportunity for career growth that I couldn't say no to." When they ask, "What did you dislike about working here?" you say, "I learned a lot here. Every job has its challenges, but I prefer to focus on the skills I gained." When they ask, "How was your relationship with your manager?" you say, "We had a professional relationship. I'm looking forward to seeing what the team achieves next." You are broken record of positivity. You are grateful. You're moving towards something, not running away from something. They might try to bait you. They might say, "Come on, this is off the record. We know Steve can be difficult. You can tell us." Do not fall for it. Nothing is off the record. Smile and say, "Steve has a unique style, and I learned a lot about resilience working on his team." It feels satisfying to vent. It feels good to unload your anger. But do that with your therapist. Do that with your spouse. Do that with your friends over a drink. Do not do it with the representative of the legal department of the company you are trying to escape. Your goal is to get out with your reputation intact and your reference secure. Once you walk out that door for the final time, the physical part is over. You are free. You don't have to wake up to that alarm clock anymore. You don't have to see those people anymore. But then, something strange happens. You start your new job, and you realize you're still looking over your shoulder. You're still flinching. You're still waiting to be yelled at. You have left the toxic job, but the toxic job hasn't left you. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about breaking the trauma bond. We're going to discuss the emotional aftermath of a toxic workplace, how to deal with the inevitable imposter syndrome, and how to deprogram your brain so you don't sabotage your new, healthy career.
Chapter 15. Breaking the Trauma Bond. You did it. You resigned. You survived the notice period. You smiled through the exit interview. You are now sitting at your new desk or logging into your new laptop at a different company. Everything seems great. The people are nice. The coffee is free. The manager actually smiles at you. But instead of feeling happy, you feel terrified. When your new boss sends you a meeting invite with no subject line, your heart stops. When a coworker asks you for a favor, you immediately assume they are trying to trick you. When you make a tiny typo in an email, you spend the next 3 hours waiting to be screamed at. You are free, but you don't feel free. This is what psychologists call a trauma bond, or more specifically in this context, the aftershocks of workplace abuse. You see, leaving a toxic job is not like flipping a light switch. You cannot just turn off the fear response that you spent years building. Your brain has been rewired to survive in a war zone. Now that you are in peacetime, your brain doesn't know how to relax. It is still scanning for threats that aren't there. The voice in your head. Imposter syndrome. The first thing you have to confront is the ghost of your old manager. Even though they are miles away, their voice is likely still living in your head. This manifests as severe imposter syndrome. In your old job, you were likely gaslighted into believing you were lucky to be employed at all. You were told you weren't strategic enough, or you were too emotional, or you lacked executive presence. You heard it so many times that you started to believe it. Now, at your new job, when someone praises you, you don't believe them. You think, they just haven't figured out that I'm a fraud yet. Give it a month, they'll see. You need to understand that this imposter syndrome was manufactured. It was a control tactic. It is not a reflection of your actual ability. Here is an exercise I want you to do. Every time you hear that critical voice in your head telling you that you aren't good enough, I want you to assign it a name. Name it after your old toxic boss. When the thought comes up, I can't do this presentation, I'm going to mess it up, catch it and say, "Shut up, Steve, you don't work here anymore." Externalize the criticism. Recognize that it is a remnant of the past, not a fact of the present. Shedding the armor. The second challenge is dealing with your defensive habits. In a toxic environment, you develop survival mechanisms. You over-apologize. You hoard emails for evidence. You hide mistakes. You never say no. This is like wearing a suit of heavy armor. It kept you alive in the dungeon, but now you are at a garden party. If you keep wearing the armor, you're going to look strange and you're going to be exhausted. Let me give you a common example. Let's say you miss a minor deadline at your new job. In your old job, this would have resulted in a public shaming. So at the new job, you go into panic mode. You write a 3-page email explaining exactly why it happened, apologizing profusely, and promising to work all weekend to fix it. Your new, healthy boss reads this email and thinks, "Whoa, it's just a spreadsheet. Why are they freaking out?" Your defensive behavior can actually confuse your new team. They might perceive you as high-strung or lacking confidence. You have to consciously practice dropping the armor. When you make a mistake, force yourself to send a simple one-line apology.
Apologies, I'll have this to you by 2 p.m. Then stop. Wait for the response. 9 times out of 10, the response will be, "No worries, thanks." Every time you get that positive response, your brain rewires a little bit. You start to learn that mistakes are not fatal. You start to learn that it is safe to be human. Resetting your worth. Finally, you need to detox your definition of self-worth. Toxic jobs teach us that we are only as valuable as our last project. They teach us that rest is laziness. They teach us that our value comes from suffering. You need to break that association. You need to learn how to rest without guilt. This is the hardest part. The first time you close your laptop at 5 p.m., when you technically could do more work, you will feel guilty. You will feel like you're stealing from the company. Sit with that feeling. Let it wash over you. And then go watch a movie. Go for a walk. Cook dinner. Prove to yourself that the world doesn't end when you stop working. You are recovering from an injury. If you broke your leg, you wouldn't try to run a marathon the next day. You would do physical therapy. You would take it slow. Treat your mind the same way. Be patient with yourself. If you have a day where you feel triggered, don't beat yourself up. Just acknowledge it. I'm feeling anxious because this reminds me of the old place, but I am safe now. You have escaped the trap. You are healing the wound. But there is one final piece to the puzzle. You are free now, but you will likely look for another job again in the future. How do you ensure you never ever end up in this situation again? How do you spot the toxicity before you sign the contract? In our final chapter, we're going to talk about assessing your next move. I'm going to give you the interview questions you need to ask to strip away the "we are family" veneer and see the true culture of a company before it's too late.
Chapter 16. Assessing your next move. You are now a veteran. You have survived the war zone. You have the scars, but you also have the skills. You know what gaslighting sounds like. You know what a fake promise looks like. But there is one final danger. When you are desperate to leave a toxic job, or when you are recovering from one, you are vulnerable. You are so eager to feel wanted that you might overlook the red flags in your next offer. You might jump out of the frying pan and straight into the fire. We need to make sure that never happens again. The interview process is not just about them deciding if you are good enough for the company. It is about you deciding if the company is safe enough for you. You need to flip the script. You are not a beggar asking for a job. You are an investor deciding where to invest your time and talent. Questions to ask them. Most candidates waste the "do you have any questions for us" section of the interview. They ask generic things like, "What is the company culture like?" Do not ask that. If you ask a generic question, you will get a generic, rehearsed marketing answer. "Oh, our culture is great. We work hard and play hard." You need to ask behavioral questions to your interviewers just like they ask you. You need to dig for the truth. Try asking this. Can you tell me about a time the team failed to meet a deadline? How was that handled by leadership? Watch their body language. Do they look uncomfortable? Do they glance at each other nervously? Do they say, "Oh, we just worked all weekend to fix it"? That is a red flag for burnout. If they say, "We analyzed the process and adjusted the timeline," that is a green flag for psychological safety. Ask this: why is this position open? Is this a new role, or am I replacing someone? If you are replacing someone, ask, where did that person go? If they were promoted, great. If they moved on to other opportunities after only 6 months, that's a warning sign. And finally, ask the hiring manager, how do you measure success for this role in the first 90 days?
What specific metrics will I be judged on? If they can't answer this, or if they give you a vague answer about hitting the ground running, run away. That means they don't know what they want, and they will blame you when you don't deliver it. Spotting red flags in the description. You can also spot toxicity before you even apply, just by reading the job description. Companies often tell on themselves if you know the code words. Fast-paced environment. Translation: we are understaffed, disorganized, and everything is an emergency. You will have no time to think. Must be willing to wear many hats. Translation: we fired 3 people, and we want you to do all their jobs for 1 salary. We are like a family. Translation: we have no boundaries, and we expect unconditional loyalty. Work hard, play hard. Translation: we expect you to work 80 hours a week, but we have a beer keg in the kitchen to make you forget about your misery. Look for job descriptions that focus on outcomes rather than traits. A healthy job description lists responsibilities. Manage the budget, lead the team, write the code. A toxic job description lists personality demands. Must be thick-skinned, must have a high pain tolerance, must be a ninja or a rock star or guru. Trust your gut, the vibe check. Finally, trust your instincts during the physical or virtual tour. If you go into the office, look at the people. Not the person interviewing you, they are on their best behavior. Look at the people in the background. Are they talking to each other? Are they smiling? Or is the office dead silent? Is everyone hunched over their keyboards with headphones on, looking terrified to make eye contact? Silence in an open-plan office is not a sign of productivity. It is often a sign of fear. If you're on a Zoom interview, look at the time. Are they respecting the time slot? Did they show up late without apologizing? Do they look exhausted? I once had a client who took a job even though the hiring manager yawned through the entire interview and checked his phone 3 times. She thought, he's just busy. 2 months later, she quit because he was an absentee boss who never gave her direction. Your gut knows. If you feel a knot in your stomach during the interview, that's your intuition picking up on micro signals of danger. Don't ignore it just because the salary is good. The money will never be enough to pay for the therapy you'll need if you take the wrong job. You have the tools now, you have the knowledge. You are no longer walking through the corporate world blindfolded. You know the game, you know the players, and most importantly, you know that you don't have to play by their rules anymore. We have covered the lies, the laws, the exit strategy, and the recovery. Now, it's time to wrap this up and send you out into the world with a final charge.
Conclusion: reclaiming your career and your life. We have covered a lot of ground together. We've walked through the darker corridors of the corporate world, shined a light on the hidden tripwires, and dissected the machinery that keeps so many talented, hardworking people trapped in misery. If you are feeling a mix of emotions right now, anger, validation, maybe even a little bit of fear, that is completely normal. For a long time, you were walking through a maze in the dark. You were bumping into walls, getting hurt, and blaming yourself for being clumsy. Now the lights are on. You can see the maze for what it is. You can see that the walls were placed there intentionally. You can no longer unsee what you have seen. Next time a manager tells you, "We're a family," you won't feel a warm glow. You'll hear the sound of a boundary being crossed. You'll remember that families are for love and businesses are for profit. You will smile, nod, and keep your emotional distance. Next time you see a confidential meeting invite pop up on your calendar without an agenda, you won't blindly trust that they have your best interests at heart. You will open your incident log. You will take notes. You will send the follow-up email. You will be your own best witness. Next time they hand you a performance improvement plan with impossible metrics, you won't cry in the bathroom. You will recognize it as the starting gun for your job hunt. You won't waste your energy trying to hit a moving target. You will use that energy to find a new range. You now possess the most dangerous thing an employee can have: awareness. The system relies on your ignorance. It relies on you not knowing your rights. It relies on you being too afraid to ask what your coworkers are paid. It relies on you believing that your self-worth is tied to your job title. But you have broken that spell. You now understand that a job is simply a business transaction. It is a contract where you trade your skills and your time for money. That is it. It is not your identity, it is not your soul, and it is certainly not your master. I want you to take a moment to imagine a different future. Imagine waking up on a Monday morning without a knot in your stomach. Imagine working for a leader who gives you clear goals, resources to achieve them, and feedback that actually helps you grow. Imagine a workplace where if you make a mistake, the question isn't, "Whose fault is this?" but "How do we fix the process?" These places exist. They are not fairy tales, but you will never find them if you stay trapped in the belief that you deserve the abuse you are currently enduring. The hardest part of this journey isn't the logistics. It isn't writing the resume or going to the interview. The hardest part is the decision. It is the decision to stop waiting for permission to save yourself. We are conditioned to wait. We wait for the annual review to get the raise. We wait for the manager to notice our hard work. We wait for the economy to get better. We wait for the project to end. We tell ourselves, "I'll leave after the holidays," or "I'll leave after I get my bonus." But the goalposts always move. The toxicity adapts. If you wait for the perfect time to leave, you will die at that desk. You have to realize that no one is coming to save you. HR is not coming to save you. The CEO is not coming to save you. You are the protagonist of this story. You are the only one with the power to rewrite the ending. So here is your charge. Tonight, I want you to go home and look at your resume. Not with dread, but with hope. Look at it as your passport to freedom. Update one bullet point. Just one. That is a step. Tomorrow, I want you to start your documentation. Open that notebook. Write down the date. Validate your own reality. This week, I want you to reach out to one person outside of your company. Have coffee. Have a meaningful connection. Remind yourself that there is a world outside of those office walls. And when the fear creeps in, when you worry about the uncertainty of the job market or the hassle of starting over, I want you to remember the cost of staying. Calculate the cost not in dollars, but in health, in sleep, in time with your children, in your own self-respect. Is the paycheck worth the panic attacks? Is the title worth the trauma? You are capable, you are valuable, and you are worthy of a workplace that respects you. Do not let them gaslight you into smallness. Do not let them manage you into silence. You have the playbook now. You know the secrets. The power has shifted back to where it belongs, in your hands. Update your resume tonight. Start documenting tomorrow. And always remember, a job is a contract, not a prison. Go find the environment you deserve.
Channel outro.
If this audiobook sparked a light bulb moment for you, or if it validated that gut feeling you've been ignoring, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button. Not just to support the channel, but to make sure you don't miss the next strategy session on navigating the corporate minefield. We're building a community of professionals here who refuse to be exploited, and I want you to be part of it. I also want to hear from you. The system relies on our silence, so let's break it. Drop a comment below and tell me, what is the #1 red flag you've seen at your current job? Let's compare notes in the comments so everyone reading them knows they aren't crazy and they aren't alone. And finally, before you go, check the link in the description. I've put together a free resource pack for you, including a resignation letter template that is legally safe and a printable incident log so you can start documenting your reality today. You have the knowledge, now go get your freedom. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.